Good evening. Welcome to KLRU's Austin City Limits studio on the campus of the University of Texas at Austin. This evening, in a joint effort brought to you by KUT 90.5 FM, KLRU Television, and the Austin American-Statesman, we're broadcasting a special mayoral candidate forum ahead of the election on May 9th. I'm Bruce Height with the Austin American-Statesman, and I welcome you to the 2009 Austin Mayoral Candidate Forum with candidates Carol Keaton Strayhorn, David Buttress, Lee Leffingwell, Josiah Ingalls, and Brewster McCracken. This evening's program will take place in two parts. The first, in which panelist Jennifer Staten with Morning Edition KUT 90.5 FM and David Lowry, editorial writer for the Austin American-Statesman, pose questions to our candidates. In the second part, audience members in this studio and online will address questions directly to the candidates. This portion of the forum will be streamed live on statesman.com, and questions can be emailed throughout this evening's program to politics@klru.org. The rules for engagement this evening are as follows. Each candidate will make a 60-second opening statement. Speaking order has been determined by a random drawing prior to this forum. Panelists will then address questions to candidates in alternating order. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. Direct rebuttals will be monitored by the moderator and will not last longer than 30 seconds. At the end of this portion of the program, the candidates will each make a 60-second closing statement. We've asked the audience here in the hall to remain silent. No cheers, no applause to interrupt the candidates. But before we begin, please welcome our candidates for mayor, Lee Leffingwell, Carol Keaton Strayhorn, Josiah Ingalls, David Buttress, and Brewster McCracken. Thank you. In our opening statements, Ms. Strayhorn.
Thanks to the Statesman, KLRU, and KUT. I'm Carol Keaton Strayhorn, and I'm running for mayor because I love Austin. I'll be a leader, I'll be accountable, I will energize this city's government. This city has given me a lifetime of sheer joy, and it's time for me to give back my lifetime of experience. We have the best people in the nation, the best city in the nation. We deserve the best city government in the nation. It's the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds that inspire me. This race is about our future. I'll be a leader who will get traffic moving, keep taxes low, fight to leverage jobs in Austin. I will completely change the way this city does business and have an Austin city government that Austinites can afford. Get traffic moving, create leverage, and retain jobs right here in Austin. Build a world-class medical school in Austin now. I will fight for our citizens and our city's future. Thank you very much.
Mr. Buttress.
Hi, my name is David Buttress. I went to the University of Texas and received an economics degree. I've got an MBA from Texas State. And business decisions are made every day at the City Council. And you need a businessman up there making those business decisions. I've turned 1,000 renters in Austin, Texas into homeowners and increased the tax base of Austin, Texas by over $100 million. I have a small business incubator up in Northeast Austin where we subsidize over 300 tenants on a monthly basis. I love Austin. I've spent the last 25 years of my life rebuilding East Austin, and I would love to continue doing that when I'm elected mayor. Thank you very much.
Mr. Leffingwell.
Hi, I'm Lee Leffingwell, and I'm proud to be a candidate to be the 51st mayor of Austin, Texas. I'm a native Austinite. I graduated from the University of Texas here with a degree in engineering. I served in the United States Navy as an officer and pilot for 5 years on active duty. After that, after I was released from active duty, I spent my career as a pilot for Delta Airlines, 31 years. After that was completed and I retired, I had lived in Austin almost all that time, but I was appointed by the City Council to Austin's Environmental Board, where I served for 5 years, was chair of that board for 4 years before I stepped down to run for council for the first time in 2005. I was reelected again in 2008, and I'm running for mayor because I think we need strong and steady leadership in the mayor's office to stay focused on the fundamentals, jobs and economic recovery, traffic, public safety, social services, environmental protection, and of course the delivery of basic services.
Mr. Ingalls.
Thank you. My name is Josiah Ingalls, and I'm running for mayor. I'm also the president and founder of the School for All Children Act, one of the only organizations in Texas that is fighting against educational neglect here in Texas and what we can in other states. I'm running for mayor because I believe that our current government no longer represents the people and only exists for the sake of having government, and we need to return to a government that exists for its original purpose, and that is to help the people and ensure a good quality of life of the people. Thank you.
Mr. McCracken.
First, I want to thank KUT, KLRU, and the Statesman for giving us a chance to speak directly to Austin voters this evening. This election comes at a critical time in Austin's history. For a generation, the semiconductor industry has been the foundation of our economy, and now these jobs are moving overseas. How will Austin respond to these challenges? Will we move forward, or will we be content to stand still and watch others pass us by? I believe Austin can lead in tomorrow's economy, in clean energy, in biotech and healthcare, and in creative media. And I believe the mayor can play a critical role in making that happen. I fully understand that the city faces tough budget challenges, and I'm committed to preserving basic city services. But I believe we can tackle today's challenges while at the same time moving forward into the future. In fact, I think we have to do both. That's the approach I brought to the City Council, and it's the approach I'll bring if I have the privilege to be your next mayor. Thank you very much.
We'll now go to our first question from Jennifer Staten with KUT. Jennifer?
Austin calls itself a green city and has introduced single-stream recycling, and citizens are reportedly responding well to the call to recycle more, but the city is losing money as it ships those recyclables out of the city to be sorted. So how would you make Austin's recycling system viable?
Each candidate will get 90 seconds. Carol, you go first.
First of all, I'm all for green city, green energy, clean energy, and single-stream cycling, but this decision was made in a rush. It was made before we were prepared to handle it, and under an open records request, it's been shown that it's lost $1 million. I think it's probably $2 million by now. That was for a 5-month period that ended last November. I think we probably lost $2 million. I think, like many things that this council has done, the $2.3 billion for Nacogdoches, that's going to Nacogdoches for 100 megawatts of biomass. No bids were taking. People in the council chamber saying, wait, stop, we can do that closer, better, cheaper. The $250 million solar farm mess that's in Weberville, those jobs are jobs that this council sent millions of jobs, and not only jobs, millions of dollars and countless jobs to China. We won't get them back. We've lost 36% of our manufacturing jobs in Austin since 2000, while the rest of the nation has lost 22%. That should have been stopped. We need to be taking bids. We need to prepare ahead of time for the facility to handle this recycling. And in the Strayhorn administration, there will be no bid. There will be no bid decisions. We're not going to rush them through. We're going to hear from the people.
Thank you. David?
This is another example of politicians making business decisions. You need a businessman running the city to make those business decisions. I would have not made that mistake. The city of San Antonio is making money on their recycling. The city of Dallas is making money on their recycling. For 100 megawatts, you could have spent $100 million and had 100 megawatts worth of wind energy. This would have saved the taxpayers $2.1 billion on the biomass plant. You could have spent $30 million and generated 30 megawatts of wind energy and saved over $220 million on the solar farm that they voted for over in Weberville. That money could have been spent in Austin in research and development, green technology, and bringing jobs to the Austin community. You need a businessman on council to be making those business decisions and not career politicians. Thank you.
Well, in order for single-stream recycling to work, you have to use what is called an MRF, or a material recovery facility. And we had begun the process to build our MRF here in Austin, but that project was delayed. So the decision was made to go ahead with single-stream recycling because we knew, based on pilot studies, that citizens who use single stream would recycle 40% more than they had without that system. So since we didn't have our MRF ready to go, we had to contract that out. Since we planned to build an MRF very soon, we signed a short-term contract, which frankly was not a very good contract. The terms of it were such. Then at the same time, the market dropped out the bottom for recycled materials. Most of that stuff is sold overseas, and there is no longer any market. So we're left holding the bag on that. So we did lose about $800,000. But keep in mind, as a result of implementing single stream, we saved over $1 million in wages and fuel costs because the trucks only pick that material up once every 2 weeks now instead of once every week. We essentially reduced our labor and fuel costs in half for that purpose. So in spite of the difficulties that we're going through, this program will be successful, and it is very important towards Austin reaching its goal of being a zero-waste city by the year 2040. And so I think that it is important, and I'm glad we did start it in time. There have been difficulties, but we're fixing those.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. We do need to build our own recycling facility here, but our current recycling policy and recycling program is voluntary only. And most people that live in apartment complexes cannot get recycling in their apartment without the cooperation of the owners of that property. The city needs to mandate that all trash companies, all of our waste facilities offer recycling materials and bins to everybody that they service, to bring recycling to everyone in the city, as well as mandating that companies that rent out property or houses or apartments need to be able to offer recycling facilities for their tenants. Because most people in this city do not live in single-member homes. More and more people every day are living in penthouses and living in apartments, and if we do not close that gap, we will never have a strong recycling program within the city. Thank you.
Mr. McCracken.
We're facing the same problems and challenges that every shopping mall store you see. You'll see that everything is going on sale because people won't pay as much because they can't pay as much. And that's the same thing happened in our recycling program. We saw a major drop in the prices that would be paid for recycled goods. That obviously caused a significant financial hit because we had made the decision not to enter into a long-term contract, but actually to build our own single-stream facility that will ultimately be a good thing for taxpayers and help us be more responsible and progressive in recycling. You know, this, as Lee did say, and he was right, this is saving us money on fuel because we're able to do this every 2 weeks as opposed to once a week. And you know, I think one of my complaints actually about single stream is we need to have a mid-sized bin as opposed to the really big one, because for a lot of folks, you can't put that large recycling barrel in your garage. So we need to offer some more choices. We need to get it right on the details and save ratepayers money. But we do have a responsibility as a community to recycle and prepare for the future responsibly.
Thank you. The next question will come from Mr. Lowry and will be directed first to Mr. Buttress.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Austin's seen its sales tax receipts drop for 7 months in a row. It looks like continuing trouble for next year's budget. If revenue continues to decline, where specifically would you propose the city manager make cuts to balance the budget?
You know, there are over 1,000 employees at the City of Austin that make over $100,000 a year. That's a ton of money. You know, the other thing that the city needs to do is improve density, increase density in the urban core, have more people who actually work in Austin, live in Austin. One of the biggest problems is the city has made it so hard to develop in Austin that people are having to build houses outside of Austin because the city has made it so expensive to build houses in Austin. When I was getting my signatures to run for mayor, I found that 2/3 of the people I tried to get signatures from in downtown Austin didn't even live in the city. Some of them were commuting over an hour a day. That's not green, that's not great for the environment. We need to encourage more people to live in the city of Austin and have more people working in Austin and spending their tax dollars in the city of Austin. That'll do more for increasing the tax receipts than anything else. Austin's a great city, and we need to have the people who work here live here. Thank you.
Mr. Lovingwell.
Well, I guess the easiest thing to say is we're going to scrub the budget, right? Everybody's going to scrub the budget. But the fact is we may have to do some prioritization too. We may have to decide what city services are absolutely necessary and which we can cut back on. And I think that's the responsible thing to do. The easy thing to do is make cuts across the board. That's politically easy. But the responsible thing to do is prioritize what you really have to have. And I think further than that, we're going to be looking, and the city manager has already said this, at structural cuts, things that change our budget permanently, not just for this cycle. And I don't know what those are going to be yet, but I'll give you some examples of what happened the last time structural revisions were made. They combined the watershed protection and development review departments. They moved code enforcement officers into solid waste services. They moved the management of our preserved lands, water quality protection, and also endangered species protection from the Parks Department and watershed respectively into the water utility, thus removing those functions from the competition that's inherent for dollars in the general fund. So all of those things are the types of structural changes that we may be wanting to make. In addition to that, we totally eliminated one entire department during the last cycle.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think the best way to tighten the budget is we need to stop wasting money. This city has a habit of wasting not just thousands, but millions of dollars. Everybody remembers South First Street. We tore it up, we laid it down, realized we made a mistake, we tore it up, laid it down again, cost millions. That is one example of the way we waste money in government. That money could have gone to education and a lot of other things. The best way to fix the budget is start having real accountability over the budget. Have real 100% transparency over the books, who decides what we spend and why it was spent, what company it was spent to. This stuff needs to be documented, needs to be open, public record, down to every cent. If you try to track every cent the city spends, it's nearly impossible. I've tried. That is the way to be able to have accountability on the budget. We need to have that in order to be able to balance the budget in such a way to be able to represent the needs of the people. Well, I also think that we need a ban, at least a 4-year ban until we get out of this mess of donating money or loaning money to corporations and giving them tax incentives. As soon as we stop giving them tax incentives, they leave. We need to stop doing that. That's a bad habit. We need to start putting our money and our resources into our small businesses because they build a strong foundation of an economy that will last even if we have another downturn within the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCracken?
The city spends money on basically 5 things: public safety, road maintenance, parks, library, and public health, human services. So when you're looking at what you cut, you have to also remember that the city budget is about 80% salaries, wage and benefits. And in some departments, like the police department, that's closer to 94%. So there's 2 basic ways then that you can make up for the significant gap. One way is to slice out entire areas of city services. The other way is the way that one of our great local employers, National Instruments, did, which is ask everybody to take a little bit less. And that's the approach I prefer. Like, if we're going to be trying to slice off entire sections, one of the things we have to remember is about 65% of our budget is public safety, and there's no way that we're going to be able to balance the budget by getting rid of after-school programs and parks and libraries and road maintenance. If we're just trying to hold public safety to no cuts, and that's because they're getting pay raises right now. I believe a better approach is to ask everybody to take starting with a pay freeze and to possibly take actually pay cuts. That's the way that we preserve public safety, and it's the way that we preserve after-school programs and our parks and library system. That's the Austin way of everybody sharing in the sacrifice.
Thank you. Ms. Strayhorn?
I'll completely change the way that this city budget is put together. This council this year in tough economic times adopted a budget that spent $137 million more than the revenue coming in this year. The way they balanced it was plunging into the reserves. You can say the same for Capital Metro. I will tie spending to hardworking families' income and to population growth in this city. I will appoint a mayor's task force of, this will be a brain trust, everyone from IC Square to businessmen and women, entrepreneurs out there. It will not cost the city a dime, no consultant dollars. We're going to build that budget from the bottom up, and we're going to start cutting from the top down. We will not have the highest paid lobbyists in the state. to walk across the street to the state capitol and tell them what we need. We'll not be spending $1.8 billion for a comprehensive plan in these tough economic times and $1.4 billion for a downtown plan. We will put dollars into starting a police cadet class now that this council has postponed and postponed. It's not supposed to start till after next October. It will take 11 months from the time you start that police cadet class till we have those boots on the ground. They want to see patrol cars in Circle C. They want to see patrol cars north, south, east, and west Austin. And we're going to put our priorities on top, and we're going to start cutting at the council level too. Too much staff for a council manager form of government.
Thank you. The next question will come from Mr. Lowry, and we'll start with Mr. Leffingwell. I'm sorry, Ms. Staten.
That's okay. That's all right. Austin, as you all know, is the live music capital of the world, but just within this past week, one music venue in Austin canceled all of its shows for the rest of the year because it was found to not meet the sound ordinance requirements. The music industry generates millions of dollars for the city each year. What would you do as mayor to maintain and strengthen Austin's music scene?
Well, that's right. We are the live music capital of the world. We're very proud of that, and we want to nurture that industry in every way that we can. It's very valuable, not only from a cultural perspective, but also it's valuable to our economy. I've heard the numbers, upwards of $3.5 billion a year impact on our economy from the music industry, so it's very important to us. That being said, the city has been working for a long time with various task forces to try to design a policy on noise that would respect the rights of people who live in adjacent neighborhoods, as well as protect the music industry. One approach that I think will be very effective is to designate an entertainment district downtown along 6th Street and up along Red River. And inside that district, of course, you would almost say anything goes. I guess you can't quite say that, but music would be the priority in there. Outside of that district, I think we're going to have to begin to rely on structural controls such as sound barriers of various kinds. Outdoor venues are the most problematic because if you have an outdoor venue on a creek, for example, oftentimes that the sound will drift up and down that creek for very long distances. Stubbs Barbecue is being remodeled with a view towards that. They're turning their sound stage away from the creek. That's the sort of thing we have to do.
Thank you. Mr. Ingalls?
Thank you. I do think we're the live music capital of the world, but we are at threat of not being that. The more the city brings down on the sound ordinance, the more they're basically doing away with that because of the fact that they're making it harder and harder for people to be able to have their live music. We need to have most of downtown be a noise ordinance free zone where we do not have noise ordinance until at least 3 o'clock at night. That way people can have their live music downtown instead of trying to have it further and further away from downtown. By cutting our sound ordinance and making it lower and lower and lower, we're literally doing away with being the live music capital of the world, and we're at threat of that. And the current city government, current city council knows that, has ignored that, and continues to lower that sound waves of what's allowed within downtown. And then they want to say we want to enjoy the tax money and revenue that comes from that and be able to put that in our budget, but yet they're going to take action to cut off that funding. How are we going to cut off funding when we need that? We need that growth. We need to have common sense within our local government, and that's what I want to bring.
Thank you. Mr. McCracken?
Anyone who doubts how important our creative economy is, just go downtown during South by Southwest or the Urban Music Festival or during Austin City Limits. This is a major part of our economy, and for our creative economy to succeed, the actors and working musicians and digital media creators need to have work. There's a lot of approaches that we need to bring together to create opportunities for working musicians who are the backbone of our creative sector. One thing is incubators, teaching musicians how to actually run a business for of how to earn money, how to recruit, how to distribute their music, new talent, new models. One of the things I propose is we take, the city owns the surface parking lot that used to be the site of the Armadillo World headquarters. I hope we have an ambition as a city that's greater than the armadillo of being a city-owned surface parking lot. I've asked that the city's creative leaders come together and tell us what are the kinds of things we would need in a center for our creative economy, such as health clinics, incubators, performing and recording space. The city will need a mayor who goes out and recruits record labels and talent agencies, which was something recommended by our live music task force. But finally, I think of this question of 70 versus 80 decibels. 70 decibels applies to restaurants, 80 applies to music clubs. I think we've seen a problem this week with the 70 decibel level when it comes to restaurants. Strikes me that's something we'll need to revisit. Thanks.
Okay. Ms. Strayhorn?
Live music is what makes Austin, Austin. And whether it's years ago from Willie Nelson doing a fundraiser for the Austin Symphony in Waterloo Park to now South by Southwest, Carolyn Wonderland, Freddy's, the Ranch, all these places where live music is taking place is so positive, not only for our economy, but for our very health and well-being in the city of Austin. I think what we need is a lot of good old common sense. Let's listen to people and let's have leadership. Leadership is not pitting one against the other. We can both protect neighborhoods and also the live music, and I think you can tie it to the sound ordinances, to zoning, and all can thrive happily together. In this city, we spend way too much time telling people at City Hall what they can't do, not how they can do it. And that's where the common sense comes in. Austin is a city that belongs to no special interest group, no special political credo, no special neighborhood. It belongs to all Austinites. And when we're talking about the arts and live music, let me take you right to Long Center too, which is such a great facility here in the city of Austin, but we do not have the parking that's needed. We need to build a parking garage that's adequate for Long Center now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Buttress?
The city just doesn't get it. The bureaucracy in the city really prevents the city from meeting the needs of its people. You know, they've got plan after plan after plan after plan after solving these problems, and they just can't do it. You need to have music-friendly neighborhoods, music-friendly apartment complexes, and have that creative class living together. You know, 4 or 5 years ago, the musicians of Austin came to me and said, we need a place to live. We need a music co-op. So I took an abandoned nursing home on Guadalupe, and I moved about 30 musicians in there, where they lived and worked and created music together. That's something I did as a private citizen. There was a need for a band rehearsal space, and the city wanted to spend $300 a square foot to build some band rehearsal space. And I've got 50 musicians now working at 4900 South 1st Street, playing and rehearsing on a daily basis. The city needs to create private-public partnerships where they can accomplish their goals, and they need to streamline and get rid of the bureaucracy. There's so much that can be done if the city lets us do it. The city is just too big, and they're too tied up in bureaucracy, and all they do is plan and plan and plan. They never get from point A to point B. You need a businessman making business decisions, not politicians. And when I'm elected mayor, that's what I'm going to bring to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Mr. Lowry, directed first to Mr. Ingalls.
During the recent Texas relays, a major mall closed at midday. Some downtown clubs did not open or have live music. Some exits off the interstate were blocked, and the streets were clogged with traffic. Austin looked like a very unwelcoming city to relay visitors, and its reputation suffered. What would you do as mayor about the situation next year?
Thank you. I think that the number one reason why a lot of venues decided to close is because we don't have accurate police force to help when there is time of crisis, when something is going on. And without that security, businesses wonder, is it in their best interest to stay open for some events? And when I worked at the club downtown many years ago, the owners of our club often talked about not being open for certain events just for that reason. And to this day, Austin's police force is very understaffed and underfunded. When it takes almost 40 minutes for a police officer to answer a call in my neighborhood, that's a problem. That's time someone's life could have been lost, someone could have been badly hurt. We need to strengthen that first. And when we do so, people will feel more comfortable about giving service to strangers that come to our city. We know what to expect of Austinites. We don't know what to expect from other people that come here. So when other people come here, our people that live here need to feel safe and need to feel that they can offer their services in a way that will be good for the business, good for our city, and good in a way that the people that live here can still be safe and their employees can be safe. That is the reason why our businesses close down at certain events. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McCracken?
We're all in this together, and when we send messages that we are not welcoming our guests from out of town, that is not in Austin's best traditions. When we had the malls closed during the Texas Relays, when Highland Mall closed, whatever is in their heart, the way that was understood by the whole entire community was it was a message of unwelcomeness and a message of disrespect to our guests. I said at the time, I'll say it again, as the Mayor Pro Tem of the Austin City Council, that we value the Texas Relays coming to Austin. We appreciate the competitors and their families and friends coming to Austin. We value the Texas Relays, and we hope that the competitors and their families and friends will come back next year. As your mayor, I'll work in advance with our police department, with management, and with store owners to make sure that we are rolling out the red carpet and sending out a message about the kind of city that we are in our hearts.
Thank you. Mr. Strayhorn?
I love Texas Relays. There was also a musical festival going on that weekend too. The city did not provide the leadership that was necessary. I want all of our citizens to be able to use all of our facilities. And what happened is Highland Mall, we found out afterwards, Highland Mall had sent a letter asking for 80 police officers. They were told no, that was too much. 50 were provided the last time. There were 4 days in there, though, where they said they were not opening. Had I been mayor, I would have gotten the mall representatives together. I would have gotten with the city. We would look at what can you do as a mall to provide those police officers. We spent, I bet, with the city of Austin, $500,000 on first night. First night's a great activity. But so is Texas Relays and the musical festival, and so is everyone having access to Highland Mall. And it was a happening. So there's responsibility on all sides. I want all citizens to be able to enjoy all of our facilities and have a public, you could have had a public-private venture there to make it successful so everyone could have enjoyed Highland Mall.
Thank you. Mr. Buttress?
You know, the city really dropped the ball in this case, and they really could have turned it around. The mall would have stayed open with a few more police officers on site, and instead of the city council doing something about it, they buried their heads in the sand, and they went out there and they stood up there with the protesters and said, look, we feel bad that the mall's shut too. We just don't know how to do anything about it. It would have been a perfect venue for an outdoor concert. We would have had a ton more people. The parking lot is pretty much empty most of the time. You could have had 10,000 people enjoying live music at that mall. With those extra people, the city could have provided the extra 80 police officers and kept the mall open, which would have been tremendous for the economy. The city has simple solutions to complex problems, and a lot of times they just sit on the sideline and come up with excuses why they can't get their job done. You need a businessman making these decisions and not a politician. Businessmen fix problems. Politicians have excuses for them. And when I'm elected mayor, you're not going to have these kind of problems in Austin, Texas. Thank you.
Well, I think this is a serious black eye to the city of Austin. It was embarrassing to me personally, and as an elected official, it was embarrassing to the city. And I think we should take steps to make sure it never happens again. There has been the perception that this was racially motivated. I can't look into anyone's hearts and tell if that was the case. But I can tell you that that was the perception, and that's what we have to deal with. There were conferences between the mall owners, for example, and the police department beforehand, but nobody else was privy to that. I know, looking back, the chief of police promised them 30 officers to be patrolling the mall, and that was adequate. They maintained that they needed 80 officers, evidently, and the chief just simply disagreed. He said 30 officers can completely take care of this situation. But at that point is when I think elected officials should have gotten involved had they known about it. Now we know that this is an issue, and when this comes up next year, I think elected officials should work actively with the mall owners and the club owners downtown to make sure that we have an understanding about what is needed and what is expected of them to represent the city of Austin to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Thank you. The next question will come from Ms. Staten to Mr. McCracken.
Voter turnout in city elections hovers between about 8 and 12% of registered voters. Austin prides itself on being an active and engaged city, but people don't tend to vote in large numbers in city elections. Maybe they just feel like there's no compelling reason to participate. What specifically is at stake in this mayoral election that should generate voter interest and participation?
Thanks, Jennifer. That's a great question, because this really is an election about which direction we face in the city at a moment when our economy is going in fundamental change, and also when the candidates are all presenting very different approaches about how we address these challenges on our economic future. Right now, we have to decide, as our semiconductor industry, which that's companies like Spansion, AMD, Freescale, Applied Materials, IBM. These are the companies that employ tens of thousands of Austinites, and those jobs are moving overseas. And when you're losing your private sector economy, the question is, what's your backup plan? I brought together the Environmental Defense Fund with the City of Austin and with Freescale and Dell and IBM and the best technology companies in America on the Pecan Street project, because I believe Austin is the best positioned city in the country to lead in the clean energy, particularly solar and energy storage. We're also actually well positioned to lead in biotech, and I'm supported by 44 biotech CEOs in this election, and I've been working with Semitech and the University of Texas on technology partnerships to medical research. And I'm been supported by virtually every filmmaker and working musician in the city, because I've been working with our creative economy sector leaders on how we can create new opportunities in our creative economy. It's a different approach you'll hear from each of us, but that's the approach I'll believe and I'll bring, because I think that that's the right thing to move us forward into the future.
Thank you. Ms. Strayhorn?
I believe Austinites want a leader who will lead, and an Austin city government that they can afford. This council adopted a budget that was 11.6% increase on top of 12.6% property valuation, 11.9% increase on top of 12.6% property valuation increase this year. That's unacceptable. I want to get traffic moving. We've got to quit studying traffic, start fixing it. We need a full investigation of Capital Metro, where $85 to $110 million of our dollars have vanished while the Capital Metro Board sat there. They need to be used immediately for safety, like Oak Hill at the Y, 290 East. This is a critical election, and I want to build a medical school now. That's $1.5 billion to our economy, 14,400 jobs. It will provide not only enhanced medical care on top of already good medical care here, but a safety net for the uninsured. And the biotech is great here in Austin, but this will make it even greater. Austinites want a leader that they can count on, who will lead, and I hope we hear from more voices on May 9th, which is 25 days from now.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Buttress?
You know, to cut the budget, if elected, I will not take a salary. And the reason why a lot of people don't vote in Austin, Texas elections is because they don't feel like they can actually make a difference. If we had single-member districts, people in their community would actually feel like they actually had a voice in what went on in Austin. You know, everything's controlled by, you know, the urban core and downtown Austin. And so few people vote that if any large group stood up and said, you know, we want to change, we're tired of the status quo, you can actually pick the next mayor of Austin. You know, for the last hundreds of years in Austin, Texas, you've got politicians running the city, and you need business people running the city. You know, if you're happy with the way things are, continue to vote for the local politicians. But if you want to change, you want to see the economy turn around, you want to see waste disappear, you want to see people engaged and energized about their community who feel like they can actually make a difference in Austin, you've got to elect a businessman to the city council. You've got to elect a businessman as your mayor. And that's what will happen when I'm elected mayor. You'll have more people energized, more people participating in the voting process. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lovingwell?
Well, I think several things contribute to low turnout. I think single-member districts would help, and I actually support single-member districts with a hybrid system with some members elected at large. I think the severe limits that we have on campaign contributions impact voter turnout because less people actually know what's going on. And I think the fact, in some degree at least, the fact that all council elections are nonpartisan and held separately apart from the other partisan elections in the fall contributes to some degree. And I'm not advocating that we change that partisan status, I'm just pointing it out. But I do think this election is important because we are at a crossroads. And I think we do. Economic recovery is at the top of everybody's agenda up here, I believe. But my approach is different. I do think we need to attract new employers, new major employers, especially in green energy and biotech. But we don't need to be doing that strictly with incentives. We have other things to offer new companies that want to come to Austin. But frankly, I think my major emphasis is going to be helping our local small businesses, folks that are already here. You know, over 70% of the people that work in the Austin area work for employers, for businesses that employ less than 100 people, basically small businesses. So that's where the money is. That's where we got to address our primary effort, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Engel.
Thank you. People don't vote because people think that the government doesn't represent them. If you pick up the phone and try to call the mayor, you'll get the runaround. You won't get through. And people need to have confidence within their government. Our government doesn't represent the people, and they know that. Look at our homeless rate, look at how many people are unemployed, and when they see that, they see a government that only represents the special interests, the big corporations, and not them. When they can't even get through to their city council members, that's a problem, and they don't vote because they don't feel that their vote matters at all, and that the government's just going to do what the government wants to do and not help them. Me, myself, I have not even tried to raise any money other than the filing fee, and so also one of the other people running for election, I won't say who, bought me some flyers for my campaign. I refuse to say that you need to give me money in order to help you. Our elected officials need to help you regardless of what you do for us or not for us. It is our job to do so, and it's time we have an elected official that will help you even if you don't give a cent. That's why I refuse to raise any money for this campaign to prove that you don't need money to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question, Mr. Lowry.
Thank you. Some on council have called for a multi-million-dollar bond election next year for a downtown transportation plan and rail line. Is next year the right time to hold a bond election for this rail system that hasn't really been planned yet?
Is that my
Ms.
question?
Strayhorn, yes.
Absolutely don't even discuss a bond election until we find out what's happened at Cap Metro. We need to have an immediate external investigation of Capital Metro. The reserves have plunged, as I mentioned earlier, $85 to $110 million for traffic improvements in Austin right now have absolutely vanished. We need to pay attention to some safety things with traffic right now. It's our direct connect system. If you're traveling south on I-35 and you want to go north to 183, you've got to get off, get on the access road, go through a couple of lights, and then hook up back onto a ramp. It's not safe, it's not efficient. I had mentioned earlier we need to look, and that's where we need to have our dollars going right now. We need to look at Oak Hill at the Y. We need to look at 71 going east to the airport, 290 east. We need to do things that are practical, safe, and get traffic moving. We're spending 7 hours in rush hour traffic now in the city of Austin, burning 33 gallons of gasoline. That's the equivalent of a work week, basically, that you're spending sitting in traffic. And talk about green gas emissions there. That's what we need to do to improve the environment. But first, we've got to have that full investigation. Then we can talk bond issues, but not until we find out what's happened to our dollars at Capital Metro.
Thank you. Mr. Buttress.
How many of you have had anyone give you money before, just for the heck of it? Just say, hey, let me have some money. I'm just going to spend it. I promise to do a good job, even though the last 20 years we've done a horrible job spending your money. Probably not a single one of you. The city of Austin doesn't need your money, doesn't deserve your money. You know, until they prove themselves to us taxpayers that they can spend your money and be good custodians of your hard-earned tax dollars, you shouldn't give them a dime of it. You know, make the city prove to you guys that they can watch your money better than you can. Otherwise, let you keep it in your pocket. The city of Austin's well-intentioned, but they've got way too much bureaucracy. They've got 1,000 people making over $100,000 a year. That's a ton of money. They're spending $2 billion in East Texas. They're spending $250 million in East Austin for something that nobody wants. People want green energy, but 95% of the people in Austin don't want to pay more money for it. The people have spoken and the city council's not listening to them. Make the city right their ship, make the city be accountable for the money that they're spending before you guys give them another dime of your hard-earned money. Capital Metro less than 10% of their revenue actually comes from riders. You know, how many of you guys have been stuck behind a huge Capital Metro bus with not a single person on it? You know, if you're going to have sites where like only one person's riding at a time, send a cab, send a small Capital Metro van, send a small Capital Metro car. But these huge buses that are sitting there empty, it bugs me. I pay over $1 million a year in property taxes. It's a ton of money, and I'm sick and tired of seeing my money wasted. And I'm sure you guys are too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Leffingwell?
Well, we are the most congested mid-sized city in America, and we need to do something about it. So I have called for a transportation bond election next year. The amount would depend on our bonding capacity. It would be structured so that it would not increase property taxes. It would depend on the amount of capacity we have remaining, which depends on the amount of bond debt that we've retired from the last bond packages. That bond money should be spent on road improvements. It should be spent on sidewalk improvements and new sidewalks and new bicycle facilities. And in the unlikely event that a rail election is held between now and then, it could also include funds, capital funds for a new rail facility. But at the present time, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, quite frankly. You know, we just this week, the council voted to apply for federal transportation stimulus funds. 10 projects around the city, totaling about $100 million. These projects have to be done, if we get them, some or all of them, they have to be done between 2011 and 2015. The city's share of that, the city's matching in that $100 million, if we get it, is going to be 20%, which of course would be about $20 million. So we will need to address that issue anyway, but we should also address other issues at the same time with regard to fixing our transportation mess.
Thank you, Mr. Ingalls.
Thank you. I don't think we should go for a bond election next year for Capital Metro. Capital Metro has just upped the prices to run. They're lowering their wages, taking away health care from their employees, and it doesn't help the people anymore the way that it used to. Their quality of service doesn't help the people the way that it needs to. I rely on Capital Metro to get to work every single day. I do not own a car. I see how it is affecting the lower income people within our city. Their quality of service is not good. We're giving them a lot of money every single year, pumping money into that company. It's a multi-million-dollar company that has services in, I believe, 6 cities. It has enough money to fund itself. They're wanting to up the price again in 2010. People are already complaining that they cannot afford it. They need to afford it to be able to get to their jobs in order for our economy to prosper. We need to stop giving money to corporations and start giving that money to things that we need to give that money to, like low-income housing and job creation. Giving it to a corporation is wrong, and we should not put the people at further debt just for another corporation out to make profit for their stockholders. Thank you.
Mr. McCracken.
I don't believe the next year is a responsible time to try to do a bond election. All of us who look at the financial pages know we're having a significant financial crisis globally. Our top focus has to be the economy and job creation. And that includes, protecting small businesses and promoting them, and it also includes recruiting major employers. But I don't believe that we have the ability to go to taxpayers and ask them to take on new property tax increases for a rail system next year. I do believe that is a good part of our overall transportation vision, but I have a different vision of what our next bond election should be. I believe we should have it when we would normally have it at the end of a 6-year cycle, which would be 2012. I think we should be focusing on the little things as a city that we've overlooked, like neighborhood parks, sidewalks, hike and bike trails, and youth soccer fields and athletic fields and swimming facilities citywide, so that no matter where you are in the city of Austin, and when you walk out your front door, you can see something nicer where you live. I think that's the best way we could have our bond dollars be used. Let's do that in 2012, and let's focus on the little things that'll make it better for people in their own neighborhoods.
Thank you. We don't really have time to run through a whole nother set of questions to give everybody a chance to respond. So to remain as fair as possible, we'll move to closing statements. We will do so in the same order with which we began, and that would be first with you, Ms. Strayhorn, 60 seconds each for each of you for a closing statement.
Thank you. Austin's a city that believed in me when I was a young teacher, school board president, three-term mayor and single mom, and Austin's a city that I believe in. I'll be a leader, I'll be accountable, I will energize this city's government. There is a gap between our government and our people, and I will close that gap. You ought to be able to buy a home, live in that home, and sell that home if you choose, without a mayor and a council that stands in your way. I will listen to you, I will fight for you. We will pull this city together as one. No challenge will be ignored, no opportunity will be pushed aside, not on my watch, not in this new administration of and for the people and the future. I'm asking for your support and your vote. This May 9th, 25 days from now, we can make a difference. Austin's looking for a leader they can count on. Austin can count on Carol Keaton Strayhorn. Thank you and Godspeed.
Mr. Buttress.
It's broke. And I don't think the Austin City Council that we have right now can fix it. You know, I've got over 1,000 clients that I speak with on a monthly basis. They come into the office every day and they tell us about their problems. You know, they don't want green jobs or white-collar jobs or brown-collar jobs. They just want jobs. When you're hungry and you don't have a job, all you want is a job. You know, the city's making it so complicated, and they're trying all these crazy schemes to bring revenue into the city, and it's not that complicated. You know, you've got to start with the basic city services. That's what we need to focus on the fundamentals. We've got to cut expenses. We've got to do more for the city of Austin. We need to do more for the people. We need to listen to them. But we can't keep spending money we don't have. All of us here in this room have to live within a budget. The city leaders need to live within a budget. They cannot keep taxing and taxing and borrowing and borrowing. People say, what's our bonding capacity? Let's borrow whatever our bonding capacity is, and we'll worry about the future. We'll let the future figure it out. We'll mortgage the future. That's how we got in this mess to begin with. When I'm elected mayor, I'm going to change things. David Buttress, thank you very much.
Mr. Levin.
I want to use this opportunity to make my position clear on employee pay freezes or pay cuts. What I've said over and over again is that, first of all, nobody has suggested this. The city manager has not recommended it, and he has not hinted that he is going to recommend it. But if such a thing did become necessary, I would advocate that pay cuts or freezes be applied across the board to contract and non-contract employees alike. And I further said that our senior city management, including the city council, including the mayor, should participate in that exercise as well. And again, I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does happen, it should apply to everyone, no exceptions. That would require negotiation of contracts, both with some city employees and possibly some senior management employees as well. AustinLeadership.com. I would appreciate your vote on May 9th.
Thank you. Mr. Ingles.
Thank you. I think that the city needs to have more accountability, and the way to achieve that is 100% transparency. I'm the only candidate that put every single candidate questionnaire and every question submitted to me in writing. I put those on my website, josiahingles.com. I believe in 100% transparency. That is how you make your government 100% accountable. That is what we need. We need common sense and reality within government, and a voice of reason that will represent the people and not someone to shut out the people. That is what I believe that I stand for. I ask for your support on May 9th, and I will be there for you, and I will be the leader you need if you elect me your mayor on May 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingles. Mr. McCracken, in closing statement, please.
I want to thank everybody for being here this evening and for hosting this event. This election, I think it's fair to say that each candidate in this election loves Austin and wants us to do better. But each of the candidates is offering a very different choice for voters as we move forward. I believe we can lead in clean energy, in biotech, in healthcare, in creative media, just as we did a generation ago in the technology industry. I believe we can support our local businesses even as we expand our economy in these new areas. I believe we can shape our destiny even as we keep city services intact and keep taxes low. But we can't do these things if Austin gets caught flat-footed. Cities across the country are working right now to create jobs and leadership in tomorrow's economy. I believe Austin needs to get to work right now to create opportunities. You know, Austin is a city of innovators and leaders. We're a city that wants progress. That's the kind of city that can emerge stronger from this downturn, and that's the kind of city I want to lead as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. And that ends the moderated panel portion of this evening's mayoral forum. Coming up in just a few minutes, these same candidates will engage directly with our studio and online audiences. You can log on to statesman.com to watch the live stream and email questions to politics@klru.org. For KUT's Jennifer Staten and the Statesman's David Lowry, I'm Bruce Height. Thank you and good evening.
I know.